Hi, my name is Cynthia Ruiz, and I am going to teach you how to reclaim your happiness. Well, when you were talking about our awakened self, who doesn't want to be happy? And first of all, happiness is free, so everybody has access to it. Happiness is a choice, so we can all choose to be happy. And happiness is a mindset. So I'm going to teach you how to reclaim your happiness in 3 simple steps. Step 1, I ask you to take the she test. Now, the she test sounds like a gender test, but it's not. It stands for Self Happiness Evaluation. Self Happiness Evaluation, and it's simple. All you have to do is ask yourself 2 easy questions. And let me preface this by saying, be honest with yourself. Because if you're not honest with yourself, you're not going to get an honest answer. So the questions are this. Ask yourself, what percentage of the time are you happy? And what percentage of the time are you not? What percentage of the time are you happy? And what percentage of the time are you not? Now, sometimes people get a little confused with this. Does it mean, what percent of the time am I happy over the last year, last month, last week, today? I recommend that you look at your life over the last week or month and kind of what is your average? In the last week, let's say, what percentage of the time were you happy? And what percentage of the time were you not? And again, there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's a self-assessment so you could get your baseline. So take the she test and find out what percentage of the time are you happy and what percentage of the time are you not. Let's say, for example, you said that over the last week, 60% of the time you were happy and 40% of the time you're not. And let's face it, nobody's happy 100% of the time. So that might seem like an okay average. But if you flip that and somebody said 60% of the time they're unhappy and only 40% of the time they're happy, then they have some work to do. So step number 1, take the she test and get a baseline. And then set some goals for yourself. Maybe you want to be happy in your life at least 75% of the time. I personally have to say that I'm happy probably like 95% of the time because every day I choose happiness by doing my gratitude list. So now that you have step number 1 out of the way, taking the she test, it takes us to step number 2. Step number 2 is really evaluating your life and figuring out what is standing in the way of your happiness. For me, I call this your emotional baggage. The emotional baggage in our life shows up in a lot of different emotions. It shows up as anger, resentment, guilt, shame, insecurity, all this stuff that we carry around. It really weighs us down. And where does this emotional baggage come from? Well, it comes from experiences that we've had in our life. Because when you really think about it, when we're born, babies are pretty pure, right? They cry when they need to be fed or need to be changed. But other than that, they're pretty happy. What happens as we grow up, we have different experiences in our life, some good and some bad. So hopefully the good ones have created memories, but the bad ones a lot of times cause emotional baggage. Say, for example, you were in the 3rd grade and your teacher told you you were never going to amount to anything and you couldn't do the work. Well, that may have caused some emotional baggage. Maybe you were angry at that teacher for telling you that. Maybe you resented him or her, or maybe it created insecurity. So you get the picture. We all have emotional baggage that stops us from being happy because we are carrying it around. So make a list of all your emotional baggage and these emotions that are getting in the way of your happiness. And really give this some thought, think about it, and really evaluate for yourself what's stopping you from being happy. Which takes us to step number 3. Once you've identified your emotional baggage and what's stopping you from being happy, it's time to let it go. So, step number 3 is release work. Release what's stopping you from being happy. Now, what I recommend with this is that you sit down and write out these obstacles, these emotions that are your emotional baggage that are stopping you from being happy. You write out the things you're angry about, your resentments, your guilt, your shame, all this emotional baggage. Write it out on a piece of paper. Get a piece of paper and write it out, or you can type it up on the computer, whatever works for you. But you need to print it out either from your computer or have it in writing. So then once all this is written out and all these emotions are put on paper, the way I release it is I get that paper and I burn it. I use a white candle because a white candle represents purity, and I burn that paper and literally see it go up in smoke. Now, if you're in an environment where you can't do that because maybe you live in an apartment and you don't want to set up the smoke alarms, you can equally tear it up, put it through the paper shredder. But it's that physical part of really releasing these emotions. And once you release these emotions, and sometimes you have to do it a couple times and do it more than once, because a lot of these emotions have been there for a long time. So once you release these emotions and what's stopping you from being happy, I guarantee your happiness score is going to go up. So there you have it. In 3 simple steps: getting the baseline through the she test, identifying what's stopping you from being happy, and number 3, releasing that. Then it's up to you to make that choice to be happy. Again, everybody has access to happiness. So if you follow those 3 simple steps, I guarantee you can reclaim your happiness.